Well, hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to today's episode down here on my little farmer's farm with me, Guru Mafinda. Now, on today's episode, we're going to be doing these guys. Potatoes. New potatoes, specifically in the form of Ulster Prince. That's the particular variety that we're going to be starting off today. It's about a week before the traditional time to start potatoes in the United Kingdom, which is St. Patrick's Day. I think it's the 17th of March. But we're going to be starting these off inside the polytunnel. This is Tiki Tunnel number 2 that we're in today. And we're going to be doing them in the Tesco cut flower buckets. I'll show you a Tesco cut flower bucket now. It's one of these. It's what the cut flowers come in. Now I've just drilled some holes in the bottom there for drainage. And I've taped up the handles on this particular one, just so as I can get more of the growing medium in there. The growing medium being clover compost. So we're going to be using some clover compost. We're going to be using some blood fish and bone meal. This is for the feed for the potatoes. Just a handful of blood fish and bone mixed in with the mix. And also some chicken manure pellets that we've got. You can use other sorts of manure. You know, you can use well rotted horse manure. You can use cow manure, pig. I think you can use pig. Never used pig before. I think you have to leach out a lot of the wee from the pig poo. But anyway, you can definitely use cow and horse. But we're using chicken manure pellets today, just a handful scoop of it, just because it's a drier process, and we've got some basically. Adds a lot of nitrogen into the mix. You don't need too much nitrogen though, because otherwise, as Tony O'Neill will tell you, you'll get a lot of top growth. It'll look like you've got a great healthy plant, which you will have, but you won't have the tubers necessarily underneath that reflect that growth. So it's a bit of a fine balance. It's not rocket science though, potatoes, boys and girls, as you'll see today. And we're going to be starting off 8 new potatoes, seed potatoes, in the buckets. Alright, let's crack on. Okay, so now as I said before, these are the Ulster Prince, and the pretty good examples really, these ones. Decent size. They've got 2 or 3 chits on each one. These are the chits. Now I think I've spoken about this before, but the chit is where the stem comes up from the plant. So they come out there where the starts are, and then they'll grow upwards, and from the base of the chit you'll see these little nodes on the bottom. That's where the roots come out from the potato. So the roots will come out from there, and the stems will come out from there, and the potatoes will grow along the stems as they come up through the soil until they burst through the surface. Of course, anything above the surface you don't want any tubers on, because they'll just green off. But we'll be growing below ground. Anything below ground surface should potentially get some umbilical cords going off to new tubers, fresh tubers. That you can see there on the base of the potato is where that particular seed potato was attached to its mother plant. That's where the umbilical cord was attached to the spud. So that's the bum end, and that tends to be the snout end. But these are where your chits are coming. So we're going to get these off and running now. As I say, I've got 8 of them, and we've got 8 buckets. We've got 8 of the Tesco cut flower buckets, plastic buckets that the cut flowers come in. Now a lot of people struggle getting these, but we just ask at the local Tesco Express, and they tend to have some at the back that they can give us. Okay, it's worth a punt. Just asking at your local mini mart or supermarket, anywhere that sells these cut flowers, if you could potentially have a couple of them, because then it's a free container. This is container growing that we're doing today, and these are free containers for them. They hold about 20 litres or so, roughly 20 litres. As you can see, I've taped off the handles on a few of these so that we can fill them up to the top, but you don't necessarily need to. You'll get about 10 inches of growth above the potato where you can get the actual tubers growing. And we're hoping that the tubers, if the plant is centrally close to the bottom, will potentially fill these buckets up. I've got two of them that are about 1.5 inches smaller than these, but there's 6 of the tall ones and 2 of the smaller ones, and again I've taped using gaffer tape or gorilla tape or something like that, whatever you've got, just to tape over, and you can utilise the whole space then. In fact, I might do that. I might fill these smaller ones up to the top, and then with these ones just get them, you know, up to the line of where your handles go, so that it's a fair competition. Alright, so there's our clover compost. While I've got it, I might as well use it. That's 100% Irish moss peat. You'll not be able to get that next year, but we've got it now at the moment. Got a few in, actually, in here. These have been inside the polytunnel all winter, and in here today, the temperature's quite warm. Excuse me. Quite warm today. It's the only place on the allotment that is quite warm. It's about 6 or 7 degrees inside here, but outside it's a lot cooler. But there we are. We've got the multi-purpose compost there. There's 60 litres in that bag, and I've got 3 bags of that, and that should be enough really to do what we need to do with these flower buckets. Okay, let's go. So we've got our potatoes there. I'll move those over there actually. We've got a line of buckets, a row of buckets there. So I'm going to start off, going to get some of this multi-purpose clover in. Multi-purpose clover compost in. Turn it down that way so you can see. I'm going to put 3 double handful scoops of the multi-purpose in. So like that. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now that fills up about the bottom 3 inches. We're going to get a handful of the poultry manure, pelleted. Mix that in. Give that a good mix in. And then again the same with... Oh, that's just bone meal. I'll have to stop you and get the fish blood and... Although I might just do bone meal, because we've got that in there. We've got the chicken manure pellets in there. Shall I just do bone meal, I wonder? No, we'll do it the right way. We'll do it the way we did last time, and we'll do it with the fish blood and bone and the chicken manure pellets. I'll just have to pause you guys. Alright, so I'm afraid it's going to have to be a bit of an experiment, this, because we don't have any fish blood and bone. The cupboard was bare, and I've looked all over. So anyway, we've got tons of chicken manure, absolutely tons, probably about 40 kilograms worth of chicken manure pellets. And I've got 2 10-kilogram tubs of bone meal, plus whatever's in here. So I've got plenty of that, but I don't have any fish blood and bone. In fact, I don't have any bone meal in there because that's bloody vermiculite. You silly sausage. Right, back again. All part of the fun, guys. So finally I've found some bone meal. With no fish blood and bone though, which is a bit of a blow. But we'll see how it gets on. See how they get on, these. They should be fine. I've grown them before with just the chicken manure and they've been great. But the bone meal I'll add in specific nutrients to assist with the root development. And they do say good roots, good plants, don't they? So not going to do them any harm, I wouldn't have thought. And this is definitely bone meal. So again, we'll get a handful of that. Handful of bone meal. I'm mixing it into the base here because that's where we want the roots. The roots will grow in the first sort of 3 inches in the bottom, and then in the top part, when I fill up the top part, I'm not going to put any nutrition in the top part because it doesn't need it, and 2, you sometimes get scab on the potatoes when they get kind of burned on the skin with the nutrition that's in there. Okay. It can add to your scab problem. So what I've done there, like I say, I've done about the first 3 inches with that mix, the chicken manure and bone meal mix, along with 3 handfuls, double handfuls of the clover compost. So that's what we've got in there. Into that, I'm going to get a seed potato and plonk that one for no particular reason, and I'll plonk him so that his bum's only about an inch above the bottom of the bucket. So I'll stick him centrally like that. I'll just show you. In fact, it's probably as well if I take you off there and show you in the bucket from this point onwards, boys and girls. Alright, take you off here, I'll pause you. I'm hoping that this is going to be a bit more stable because the camera was falling over every opportunity it got. Just there. Right, so I put 3 good handfuls of the compost into each one of these buckets. I'm now going to add in just a handful of the chicken manure pellets to each one. Yeah, and then I'm going to go back with the blood fish and bone and put a handful of blood fish and bone in to each one. Just a handful scoop in with the mix. And as I say, bone meal's good for root development. Healthy roots, healthy plants. Let's hope it works then in the same manner for our spuds, which it should. So all the bone meal's in now. I hope you can see. Then I'm up at this top end. All I do is I give it a good swizz round, so just sit on the floor like that. You can sit like Lord Buddha, and you can just give it all a good mix around. Don't have to sieve this sort of compost when you're doing spuds at all. Spuds will grow in rough soils, lumpy bumpy soils. Doesn't matter, doesn't need to be sieved. Could probably use the John Innes in here, couldn't I? That I was moaning about last week. Just leave the lumps in. This clover compost is as good as anything else, really. And it's 3 for 12 quid at Paul Green. I think it's going to take about 2.5, so it'd be about a tenner's worth of compost to do these 8 buckets, which sounds like a lot, really, doesn't it? But you don't waste your compost. Once you've tipped out your potatoes, you can reuse that compost. About 90% of the compost will be fine just to put back out onto the garden. So you've not actually lost much. It's probably cost you about £1 worth of compost. It's probably cost you about £1 worth of blood, fish and bone, and in this case bone meal. You know what I mean? To do 8. And we're hoping to get around about, fingers crossed, we're hoping to get about £2 in weight. We get £2 in weight from each one. That's £16 in weight of beautiful, and I mean they are nice, beautiful Ulster Prince new potatoes. Excellent spuds, Ulster Prince. Really, really good taste to them, the Ulsters. And you can let them to grow. You can leave them to grow on as well, so you get big spuds if you wanted to. And they're ideal for chipping, mashing. I like them when they're just boiled potatoes, either boiled or mashed. But they're a decent spud. They're a good potato, the Ulsters. We like them a lot, and we've been growing them now for about 5 years. The Ulster Prince, and they've never let us down. You always get a crop off them. Last year wasn't too spectacular because what I did last year, well, it wasn't spectacular in the buckets because I left them to nature. I didn't water them at all last year, and the results weren't as good. Do you know what I mean? We were getting like 1 1/4 pounds, £1 to 1 1/4 pounds out of each bucket, which for me was rubbish. Because we have been getting them. I think the best year that we had, we got potatoes coming out, Ulster Prince coming out, and they were like £2.5. I think 2.7. No, £2. £2 and 9 ounces, I think it was. I'll have to look back. Was the best bucket that we had. And they were in the Asda ones. These are the Tesco buckets, but they were in the Asda cut flower buckets that we had the best results, and that was about 3 or 4 years ago when our James was about 7. Second year of doing the videos, I think it was second year on the plots. And with that one we had in, we did it, I think the best results that year were the ones that we just did in the chicken manure pellets. There certainly wasn't much difference because we did an experiment where we were using chicken manure pellets, bloodfish and bone, and you know, the grow more stuff, the grow more potato feed. And I think the bloodfish and bone just about edged it. That was a handful scoop of the bloodfish and bone, just about edged it. But the chicken manure pellets were a very close second. In fact, really, it was too close to call. But I listened to other boys and girls, and Tony O'Neill, who's a very good grower. You might know him from Simplify Gardening. He favours the bloodfish and bone because there's too much nitrogen, you know what I mean, in the chicken manure pellets. It's a bit nitrogen heavy, so you do tend to get a lot of top growth, you get a lot of leaf growth, but it doesn't give you the all-round balance that you would get with bloodfish and bone meal. But they should do fine, they should do okay, can't see much of a problem. Fingers crossed. Right, so all that's in now. So I'll pause you and I'll put the spuds in and I'll show you what we look like at this stage. Okay. Okay. So all the spuds are in centrally, with the chits pointing to the sky. There's one I finished earlier. So they're all in there now. Potato production line this is. I'm going to top them off with a compost. Okay, so there they are, all in. 8 Ulster prints in their new homes. They'll hopefully pop through in about 4 to 6 weeks through the surface with the stems, and then after that it's happy days. That should take us into March, around about the back end of April into March. And if they're in here, in this super duper trampoline framed polytunnel, which is my favourite one, this one, Cheeky Tunnel 2, they should be fine. They should be protected from the frosts. The frosts in our part of the world, yeah, the frosts can still be present in mid-May. So that's our last frost date, I think, is something like the 21st of May. Won't quote me on that, but it's quite late, the last frost date. So they're going to stay in here until after that, probably the end of May, and then for the last month in June they'll be going outside, because they should be fine then to go outside and finish off. And they take about 3 months, so it takes between, they say between 9 and 12 weeks, but I'd favour the 12 weeks. Give them the best chance that you can with these new potatoes. And then after the 12 weeks, which should take us to January, February, March, April, May, June, yeah, mid-June, they'll be ready for harvesting. And like I say, fingers crossed. Going to give them all the best chances that we can. Water them. Because it's inside the polytunnel, I will be watering these at least once a week. I'll start and give them a good watering, about 3 litres of water per bucket initially, and then after that probably about once a week. But I'll be checking the you don't want them drying out, but you don't want them wet through, because the seed potato will rot off in the ground then if you do that, if you overdo it. But we don't want them getting too dried out. That's what happened last year when we got the poor results. We had early die off, and we also got very poor results. Half what we were expecting, to be honest with you, last year. But this year we're going to look after them. Alright, so stay tuned. We'll be doing regular catch-ups. All clearly labelled up there as Ulster prints. And they were planted on the 11th of the 3rd, 23, with what we put in there now? Chicken manure pellets and bone meal, handful of each. So let's see how they get on. They should be fine. Should be fine and dandy. Yeah. As I say, they've all been watered in now. They've had about 3 litres per bucket in there. So yeah, that'll seep down, get the soil moist, and then I'll be checking that once a week just to make sure it's maintaining that moisture. You don't want them to be too wet. If they're too wet, the potato will rot and you won't get a good plant, if you get a plant at all. But you don't want them too dry either. That's the only thing with spuds. You just got to maintain. It's like any plant really. You've got to try and maintain that the correct moisture levels through the growing period. So hopefully, fingers crossed, beginning of June this year, probably even the back end of May, we'll be taking potatoes out of there, weather dependent. All right. It's lovely and warm in here, you know. Proper warm. I don't know what it is though, because I took the thermometer out of here. I know in there it's 9 degrees, but that's a lot cooler than it is in here. So I'm thinking it's about 12 degrees in here, and outside it's only about 2 degrees. It was -1 this morning when I came on. But yeah, it's lovely and warm. That's my favourite one, that. If you haven't seen the episodes where we were building these tiki tunnels, these back-to-back tiki tunnels, that's Tiki Tunnel 1, which is a bigger one than this one, but not much bigger, and that's Tiki Tunnel 2. And down there is the Tiki Hut. Right, take care of yourselves and each other's, boys and girls. I'll see you in the week, if I don't see you through the window. God bless. Peace, love and happy Mondays. Tony Murphy signing out, aka Guru Muffinda. Alright, take it easy now, boys and girls, and get your spuds planted. See you in a bit. Just adjust you a sec there. It's a bit precarious where it is, that camera, but fingers crossed. Right, so we'll get the manure pellets in. As I say, just a handful scoop of each in. They've all been filled up now with the 3 handfuls of compost. Oh! That'll have to be an outtake, I think, that, guys.